Thank you all for being here this morning. My name is Saliou Babou and I'm the head of innovation at the Canadian Consulate General in New York. Merci à tous d'être ici parmi nous. Je m'appelle Saliou Babou et je suis le chef de l'innovation au Consulat général du Canada à New York. And a special thank you to David Polgar and Kate Gwynn from All Tech is Human, our co-host this morning. It has been truly a pleasure to work with you on this event. Part of our role here as at the consulate is to tell the Canadian stories on important issues like climate action, diversity and inclusion in tech, and ESG investing. In this context, I was very interested in the idea of responsible tech, which speaks to the work that we do with Canadian companies in helping them become better corporate citizens, improve sustainability, and uphold human rights. And the idea of responsible tech also was relevant to some of our broader priorities from the Canadian government in addressing cyber threats and combating misinformation through social media. So I got in touch with David and essentially asked him, how could Canada be part of the conversation here in New York? And also listen and learn from the thought leaders in this very room. And I think that's what we're all here today, to learn from each other. With that said, please allow me to introduce André Frenette, Canada's Deputy Consul General in New York, to say a few words.
Bonjour à vous tous, merci. Merci, Saliou. Welcome, everybody. I'm so delighted to have you here this morning. Full house here in New York. We've got hundreds of people that are online to participate in this most important event. Saliou, to you and your team. David, to you and your team. It's been a long time coming. I know that you guys worked so hard to get to today, and here we are. Thank you and congratulations. I'm delighted to see all of you. Before I start my remarks, let me please recognize a very important person who is with us today, Professor Erwin Kotler. Our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, appointed Professor Kotler as Canada's Special Envoy on preserving Holocaust remembrance and combating anti-Semitism. Professor Kotler is here in New York City to receive an honorary doctorate at the Jewish Theological Seminary. Now, for us Canadians here in the room and those of you who are online, Erwin Kotler is not just a national treasure. He's also someone who's dedicated his entire life to defending human rights. And he wanted to be here this morning, especially for this first session on what does free expression look like in a digital space. And as we see an increase, an alarming increase in anti-Semitism and hate more generally in the online space, on the digital space, the conversation today is not only very important, but also very timely. It's an honor, Professor Kotler, to have you with us this morning. Welcome. Dear friends, as a society, we have reaped so many benefits from the monumental advances in the tech sector over the past century. These advances have accelerated productivity, changed the way we learn and access information, and facilitated tremendous economic growth. They've also allowed us to work remotely and stay connected to our loved ones during the global pandemic. However, over the last decade, we have seen that the proliferation of misinformation and disinformation through technology and social media poses a serious threat to international political stability, our democratic systems, and the rule of law. These threats surround us, infiltrating every facet of our lives, and they grow in complexity and in scale every single day. Around the world, widespread misinformation about vaccines has fueled polarization and undermined trust in our public institutions. In Ukraine, Russia's illegal invasion was the culmination of the Kremlin's years-long disinformation campaign to justify its illegal annexation of Crimea and undermine the democratically elected government. And today, Russia continues its campaign to paint Ukraine as the aggressor in the conflict and to try to divide Ukraine from its allies. Closer to home, just last weekend in Buffalo, a violent extremist took the lives of 10 people in a mass shooting that targeted the Black community. This horrific attack was fueled by racist, white supremacist conspiracy theories spread online and through the right-wing news media. As the US heads into the 2022 midterm elections, this country is particularly vulnerable to disinformation campaigns that seek to sow division and erode trust in democratic systems. As your friend, neighbor, and fellow democracy, Canada is vulnerable to these same threats. The government of Canada is committed to doing its part to improve digital spaces by bolstering cybersecurity, countering disinformation, and promoting world-class business practices. Last week, I had the pleasure of meeting with an executive from MasterCard and hearing about their new intelligence and cyber center in Vancouver. Launched in partnership with the Government of Canada and its Strategic Innovation Fund with a $510 million investment by MasterCard, this initiative will make Canada a world leader in cybersecurity and help us tackle the cost of cybercrime, which in our country costs approximately $3 billion per year. This is exactly the kind of private-public partnerships that we need to meet today's challenges in the digital world. To further enhance our cybersecurity, the Government of Canada has also boosted funding for the Communication Security Establishment, our national cryptologic agency tasked with information technology security and foreign signals intelligence. This funding will bolster Canada's ability to launch cyber operations, prevent and respond to attacks, and make critical government systems more resilient to interference. Now, recognizing that our safety is intertwined with the safety of our allies, the Government of Canada works with the United States and other world leaders to prevent, thwart, and respond to evolving threats to democracy through the G7 Rapid Response Mechanism. This is truly a multilateral effort, and we're grateful to have representatives of like-minded countries and organizations such as the United States, the UK and France, and the United Nations that are with us here today. We're also working with communities and companies at home to better understand the collective threats we face and develop new tools to respond. In April, the Government of Canada, through the Canadian Trade Commissioner Service, launched its new Responsible Business Conduct Strategy, which offers a framework and digital tools to help Canadian companies operate in high environmental and ethical standards. Moving beyond the extractive sector, the renewal of the strategy will now encourage Canadian tech companies to increase sustainability and uphold human rights. Adopting responsible business practices not only helps Canadian companies make a positive impact on society, it also improves their bottom line and makes them more innovative and more competitive in the global market. And you will hear more about some of those initiatives, solutions from Canada's Communitech and Diversio this afternoon. To meet today's challenges in the digital space, we know we cannot go it alone. We will need all of our allies and partners to join us in this fight, particularly those in the business community and the private sector. I hope I can count on all of you here today for your ideas, your creativity, and your commitment to building a better digital world. The future of democracy depends on it. I'll leave you with this, a few big questions that have been on my mind lately, and I hope that you'll consider them throughout your conversations today. How do we as a society balance freedom of speech and expression with the protection of our most vulnerable communities? What is the role of technology companies as platforms, but also as content generators in preventing the spread of propaganda and countering disinformation? How do we nurture an information ecosystem with diverse, reliable sources of news so that citizens are able to hold a shared set of facts? Finally, how can governments and companies work together to build a digital environment where democracy can not only survive, but flourish? I ask you to think about those questions as you deliberate today. These are big, complex questions that demand bold, innovative responses, and I'm excited to hear your thoughts and your perspectives on them throughout the day. Thanks again so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the summit, and I now give the microphone to our good friend, David Polgar, the director and founder of All Tech is Human. David.
And good morning. I have to say, every time I get worried about the future of American democracy, I tend to make another Canadian friend. So just saying. My name is David Ryan Polgar. I'm the founder and director of the nonprofit based here in New York called All Tech is Human. You might say, hey, there's no center, there's no institute in that name. All Tech is Human sounds kind of unusual. What is that about? I think we have a little bit of a philosophical divide going on. You have certain people who think that the future of tech is already decided. The technology comes down from the heavens and we're just on this path. But that's not the way it works. I strongly disagree with that. All tech is human. The future of tech is intertwined with the future of the human condition and the future of democracy. That is a big deal, full stop. It's such a big deal that it behooves us as a moral duty to get involved in the process. No application without representation, not about us without us. If we're impacted by technology, which we are, then we not only should, but we have to get involved in how it's developed and deployed because it impacts us. It impacts those around us from Christchurch to Buffalo, from January 6th to the protests in Ottawa. This is a large issue, but that's also why I like to start things off with some good news and some bad news. And I know there's a lot going on, and I do want to recognize that. So I do want to deeply thank each of you because I know people got on planes from Australia and the UK and Europe to be here. So that's exciting. But let's get the bad news out of the way, right? We do have a lot of bad news going on in the world today. Here's the bad news that doesn't get talked enough about. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this. There is no magic button that's going to allow us to solve the deep problems we have, even around a situation like the Buffalo massacre. Technology is intertwined with society, with human behavior. It's our need to involve not only technologists and make them more ethical, but to bring on the saints and the poets, the ethicists, the psychologists, the artists, the attorneys, everyone, you, because this is social technical. This is deep. This is a large issue. One of the reasons why I started All Tech is Human in 2018 here in New York is because there's a misconception. There's a misconception in the media, frankly, that if only somebody cared. I care. You care. Thousands of people across the globe care. Thousands of people across the globe want to get more involved in the process, but there is not a conducive environment that connects a diverse range of stakeholders to benefit from knowledge sharing and collaboration, to connect an ecosystem that benefits from this collective knowledge. So that's the bad news, but let's get into the good news. I want each of you to just turn around and look at everyone here, and I know we have a bunch of people on the live stream as well. It's a really impressive group. There's a lot of passion here. There's a lot of people who are building tools, who are creating reports, who are dedicating their life to responsible tech. My own background as an attorney an educator. I'm not a tech guy. I'm a guy who cares about the human condition, a guy who cares about the future of democracy. That's important, right? And that's, I think, why so many of us are taking a shift. But we don't just need a tech shift. We need a cultural shift and a paradigm shift. And that's what we're working on at All Tech is Human. So I'd love each of you to get involved. We're trying to connect the community, all these interlocking parts, grassroots meets a power structure, and change the system. And that's the part that I'll leave you on, is that the reason why I still have a smile on my face with all the darkness in the world today is because of this, is because people are here. People are doing this for their work. We don't lack passion. We don't lack knowledge. What we lack is an interconnected system that benefits, that stands on the shoulders of giants. That's what we're trying to do, to build a tech future that's co-created and aligned with the public interest to grow the overall ecosystem. This is quite powerful. You've got the power of community, the power of collective intelligence, and the power to change systems. And that's what we're doing here. So now let's get started. And thank you again for all being here. Let's always continue the conversation. We're going to get started with the first panel all around free expression and what that means. Hey, you might have seen that in the media recently. There's something going on, I think, in the social media space around that. I'm going to bring on Dr. Jamie Cohen, who's going to be our moderator for this panel. So thank you again for being here. Thank you.